Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about how to debrief a CPA case correctly with some examples. Debriefing is one of the most important part of your CPA study process, so you want to make sure you're doing it properly so you get the most benefit out of it. If you like what you see, please give this video a thumbs up and consider to subscribe, as videos come out weekly. I've also listed ways to connect with me in the description below. So let's begin. Today we're going to talk about what is debriefing, why do we debrief, how long does it actually take to debrief, steps of debriefing, and I'll walk you through an example of how I would debrief. So now let's talk about what is debriefing. We hear this term a lot being thrown around every time we write a case. In my opinion, it's the worst part of the study process because it's a lot of reading and making notes. I'll be going through more detailed steps of how to debrief later on this video, but on a high level, it's marking yourself, reading the solutions, and writing study notes. Just from the sound of that, you might understand why I find it so boring and why I hate it so much, but it's very important that we get good at debriefing. So now let's talk about why do we need a debrief. So first off, one of the reasons is because we want to find our mistakes. We need to know what we did wrong to be able to change it, or else you'll just be doing the same thing over and over again, and you'll create bad habits of writing bad cases. So when identifying your mistakes, you want to determine if you were weak in identifying the issue, technical, or time allocation. A lot of times in cases, it might just come down to even just nerves. So also look at ways to manage it because it's a stressful time. Then you want to reinforce what you did right. Sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit for this. So when you ace an AO, don't be shy to give yourself a pat on the back and a gold star. Once you identified what you did well, keep doing it on every case. Don't change what's not broken. The last step of why we debrief is because we want to get better. It doesn't matter where you start off, you just want to know that you were better than yourself yesterday. The overall objective of debriefing is to be able to identify similar issues in other cases and write a competent response based on what you have learned. It's okay if you got an NC or an RC in your current case, but make sure when you get the same issue on another case, you're getting that C. After doing so many cases, you should be able to have a wide range of topics that you're good at, and you should be able to write a near perfect response each time. So if you're asking, how long does it actually take to debrief, and why does it always take me so long? Well, I could tell you that you're not alone, because it takes a very long time. People normally say that the debrief time can take as long as how much time you took writing the case. But it really depends on how well you did. If you got all C's versus someone that got all NC's, the time might be different. For reference, it takes me about 1.5 hours to do a day 3 case and a good 4 to 5 hours on a day 1 or day 2 case. Now let's talk about the steps of actually debriefing your case. Obviously, the first step is that you have to actually write your case, and then the following steps should happen on the same day if possible, so that the case is fresh in your mind and you don't have to relearn the case again. Once you're done, I usually start reading the solutions and make technical and case writing notes. I'll show you in the example afterwards on how that looks like. Try not to get too sad when you read the sample solution because it's written by a CPA that probably took more than the recommended time on this case and had all the resources available to them. If there's a sample response, make sure you also read that as well. That would give you a good sense of what a realistic answer looks like. What I like to take out of those sample responses is how they did their formatting and how they wrote just enough to get the C and then move on. The next step is marking the case. When marking the case, you want to pay attention to what is needed for a C and what was not given any marks. That will help you to be more concise and cut off things that don't give you marks and then add things that will. Some of you might say that you would mark the case as soon as you finish writing it instead of reading the solutions first. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but this is just my preference. The reason is because now I know what the feedback guide is talking about when it says something needs to be explained in depth, and this provides me a point of reference to compare to. The last step would be to review your notes that you have made, and I'm not talking about just today's notes. I mean, you want to debrief and review all the notes that you've actually written in the past. So every day you would review the previous notes that you've had plus one more. At the end, the first case that you've ever wrote, those notes would have probably been reread like 1 billion times. On this slide, I just want to provide you some questions that you can ask yourself when debriefing to help you identify what to improve on. Try to find something to improve on each time to get better. Sometimes it's little things like writing a conclusion or clarifying your assumptions on a quant. So now let's go through an example of how I would debrief a case. The case I want to go through with you is called Atomic Excellence Inc. It's posted on the CPA website as a sample Core 1 exam. I provided a link in the description below if you want to download it yourself. On the left, you could see an excerpt of the case with my highlights on what I think is the key case facts. On the right, you could see what is my sample response. I'm not going to read through the case or my sample response, but feel free to pause the video and take some time to read it. As a summary, this AO was talking about internally generated intangible assets. On this page, I gave myself a grade of an NC or a low RC. To be honest, the mark is not that important. You really just want to know how to get to a C. On the right side, you could see the CPA sample solution. Again, this is written to a CD level, and it's not meant for you to do it within the time given. In the sample solution, you'll notice that I highlighted things in green, which I have included in my response, and things in red that I have missed. For example, I said that this was an issue of determining if there was an internally generated intangible asset, but I didn't talk about if there needs to be future benefit, which this is alluding to the issue of if it was an asset or not. After going through the solutions and marking key, this is what I would have wrote on my technical notes and my case writing notes. Technical notes are specifically about the concepts being tested, whereas the case writing notes are things I have missed that can improve my case writing overall and apply to any case. For example, it could be like remembering to apply case facts and talk about income statement impacts. Your notes do not have to be all about what you missed, but also include things that you have done well to encourage you to keep doing it going forward. Thanks again for watching, and hopefully now you know how to debrief a case correctly, and not worry too much if it's taking you a very long time. The more time you put into debriefing, the more you're actually learning. As always, please consider to subscribe and like this video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment below.